I think that it was a good effort, but what the voters don't want right now, the last thing they want is somebody anointed on high from Washington D.C. Washington D.C. could not be less popular right now, and so I think when you think about inevitability, there are a lot of political process problems that come along with that, but from a messaging standpoint, I think Hillary's biggest challenge is going to be how can you be a reform candidate when you've been in Washington for 30 years and you've been anointed by John Podesta and Jim Messina and everybody in the Democratic Party.
What's interesting is that you guys seem to be pretty panicked about this, and you've got a big effort up yourself, by the way. We talk about everybody else's super PACs. You've got a whole organization dedicated
to this. It's needed to combat it.
But I think in some ways, this whole attack on Hillary Clinton from you and folks like you is a facade. I think what's actually going on here is that we have a united party and you guys have a circus. And the only thing that's holding you guys together right now is when you hate on Obama or now you hate on Hillary Clinton, though you liked her half an hour ago. So isn't this a sign of a very weak Republican Party that you guys have to spend this much time and energy? The only thing holding you together is not liking Hillary Clinton?
No, I don't think so. I think what America Rising plays an important role in this process, which is making sure that Hillary is being held accountable and doesn't just get to fly around the country to event after event without anybody challenging her and her message. But from our party standpoint, we've got a really deep bench. I think that it's the Democrats who are in trouble if Hillary doesn't run, because who do they turn to? We've got Governor Walker and Paul Ryan, both in Wisconsin, Marco Rubio, Susanna Martinez. I could go on and on. Hey,
Chris Christie, yeah.
So I think that from our perspective, of course, we're going to have a primary with a lot of rising stars. And that's okay.
That's great, but don't you think I mean, you've been criticizing all these other groups,
sure,
but don't you think there's something kind of poisonous here? I bet you that if Hillary Clinton were not rising in the polls, if we had another Democrat, you'd be sitting here attacking that Democrat or any Democrat. Why should we take groups like yours so seriously when it seems like there's a set of people who, no matter what Democrats do, you're just going to attack them?
Hey, look, no, we learned a lesson from 2012, and I think you saw in 2012 you had Priorities USA and American Bridge and all of these groups who were dedicated solely to beating Mitt Romney, going back all the way to the day President Obama was inaugurated. And I think we learned a lesson from that from a political tactics standpoint this time, and realized we needed to start a group early that was doing the research and making sure Hillary Clinton's held accountable for her record.
Well, the biggest lesson that I think and I hope that Tim and his colleagues would learn is that time and time again there have been attempts to take down Hillary Clinton. There have been groups before yours, sorry, and they haven't worked. And people try, and they try again, and they pop up sort of whack-a-mole style, and it doesn't work. So I understand and I appreciate the nature of all of this in the democratic process. I've yet to see it work.
Well, this is where I think
2008 primary.
Yeah, that's right. I think this is where the threat possibly comes for Hillary Clinton, is that a lot of the energy inside your party is on the left. And whereas Hillary Clinton is seen as the inevitable candidate, where she's seen as poll tested, a lot of folks inside your party right now, they're looking for somebody who's this bold visionary, somebody who's going to take this confrontational approach against the right wing. That's not Hillary Clinton, right?
I would really unpack everything in your comments there, because there is a record of what Hillary Clinton has stood for and believed and fought for, the values that hold up her efforts throughout her career. And while we don't know, A, if she's going to be a candidate, and B, what she would say about her own candidacy, I do think there's a certain certainty about the values that she would bring to that. And I do believe that it represents the totality of democratic interest.
If you look at the conversation that's taking place inside the Democratic Party right now, it's not focused where Hillary Clinton is, where she's giving $200,000 speeches a pop right now on Wall Street. Wouldn't you agree with that? That is a very big problem that a potential Hillary Clinton candidacy, as you said, has.
The efforts to sort of churn up something about the left, and that there's something happening and there's dismay. I don't know how else that is manifesting except in conversations like this, where it gets asserted. I'm not sure that there's a true manifestation.
You're saying it's churned up. I mean, this is where your party is. I mean, you've gone through the caucuses out in Iowa, right? Those are pretty left-leaning folks. The ones that show up in places like at the primaries in New Hampshire,
sure,
they're on the left.
And she's polling at about 70% in the party, which is
ready for Hillary.
I want Tim to
in
speak
Iowa
to this,
with
because
hundreds and hundreds.
we're talking about a profile right now outside of the political arena. It's pretty easy to get to 70%.
Oh, nobody's ever done it.
Yeah.
Once you get in the arena, what happens?
Once you get in the arena, those numbers start to come down. And if you look at Hillary Clinton,
until they announce.
And if you look at her numbers historically, she's always been the best when she's been seen as non-political. During her time as First Lady, during her time as Secretary of State, her numbers historically have always started to come back down to earth as soon as she re-enters the political arena. We saw it in the 2008 primary. We saw it during Hillary Care. And I think that's something that we'll see over the next few months.
You would have to admit two things, though. You'd have to admit, first of all, no front runner in any party in history has had the kind of support that she has. I think that's pretty extraordinary. But the other thing is, too, you guys are going to have to be very, very careful. One of the things that you have been really good at a party, as a party, when you started taking on women and women's issues, you usually put your foot in your mouth. Are you concerned that Republicans are actually going to create more problems for themselves? You're going against famous woman in the world, one of the most powerful and successful women in the world, a presidential candidate who has a resume that's almost unheard of, unmatched. You're going to attack. Are you
Sounds
worried?
like when Obama ran in 2008.
Yeah,
are you worried?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think that Hillary Clinton has myriad vulnerabilities that the candidates are going to be able to speak to, and so that's not a concern.
And she is the most vetted candidate in the world, I would venture to guess.
Probably, I would agree with you on that. Now, I want everybody to stay here. When we come back, you're going to hear the outrage of the day from me and from him. On my outrage, though, I am happy to say nearly 100,000 people in North Carolina already agree with me. Now, we also want you at home to weigh in on our fireback question for the day. Very simple. Should Hillary Clinton run for president in 2016? Tweet yes or no using hashtag Crossfire. We're going to give you those results when we get back after the break.